Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. I'm Lauren,
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
and we're just going to start talking to each other.
Yeah, because that's what we do really well. Right. Okay, Lauren. So, I remember getting a phone call from you, and you were so ecstatic about telling me, your exciting news about an idea. Can you tell us about what the idea was about this podcast?
So, ever since Nicole was in high school, and she struggled hugely in high school, and we don't know what we're doing because there's no manual for parenting. And so we didn't have anybody to go to. So we went to the school. And the school was, to say they were less than helpful is a huge understatement. Actually, rewind that, when she was in middle school, I asked her to be tested for learning disabilities. And they said, no, she's fine.
Okay, did they do some kind of testing at all? Or?
No, they refused to do it because I found out, and I can't remember who I found out from, but I found out that if I wanted her tested, I would have to go through the school's system. So I asked the school, and because she was having problems with comprehension, and that was the first sign that something wasn't right. And they were like, no, she's fine. She doesn't, and they wouldn't do it. So don't worry, she's fine. She's just going through a phase, whatever. So I listened to them. So then she went into high school, and then that's when the problems really started, were freshman year. And we didn't know what to do. And we just, she was struggling, so we were struggling, and we didn't know how to help her. And
So
I was
a level of frustration.
We were completely frustrated. But I kept at it and kept talking to people, and that's when, and we kept sending her to different therapists and different psychiatrists because we were running into people that just were no good whatsoever, and she didn't like them, so she couldn't connect with them, and I just kept talking to people, and we learned little by little by little, and on the internet, just did everything we could to learn what we needed to learn. So I'm like, this is wrong. It shouldn't be this hard. Right. These people are supposed to be the professionals. I'm supposed to be able to go to the professionals and get the answers that I need to help my daughter. Right. In the meantime, she's getting worse and worse into her depression and anxiety. And then she's really starting to struggle at school, which she never really had before. And we didn't know what to do. So we just kept pushing, and she got through high school, and then came the time when it was time to decide on college. Well, my parents, the only way Black folks could make it back when my parents were coming up was to get an education. Right. That was it. So in my house, you went to high school, you went to college, and then you went out and got a job. That's what my sister did. Right. It's not what I did. Right. I went to college and I dropped out before the summer before my senior year. So I knew there was more out there. And I started doing what I loved. And Nicole was struggling, but she was a creative. That we knew for sure, that she was a creative. When she was younger, we thought she was an athlete. But by the time she got to high school, we knew she was a creative. I knew enough to know that, okay, she's thinking out of the other side of her brain. By then, she had been diagnosed, freshman year, she got diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So we're starting to make progress, but we're still not getting to the nitty gritty. I didn't even have another parent that I could go to. Right. So I'm like, God, there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be. And that's when I started thinking, man, if I ever have the opportunity, I'm going to tell the frickin' truth. Right. And everybody that knows me knows that I will tell you the truth.
That's for damn sure.
So I started thinking about it, and we're going through all this, and we hired a scholarship counselor for Nicole.
I remember that.
And she was great. She was fantastic. She took into consideration that Nicole is a creative, not an academic, and she's one of the major reasons Nicole got into the school she got into with the scholarship that she got. We would have never figured that out.
Right. We were all excited about that.
Yeah. But there was still something missing there. And I just think it's information that she didn't know. No harm, no foul. She did the best she could by us, which was really, really, really a whole hell of a lot better than we could have done. Right. But I was like, God, there's got to be something there's got to be something. So I thought about doing a blog.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I ain't writing nothing.
Yeah. I remember you're like, if I was ever going to do a blog, nothing would ever happen.
Nothing. There would be no blog.
There would be like...
So then
Mhm.
I thought, well, maybe I'll just do like a series of videos where I sit in front of the camera and I talk to the camera and put it out there on YouTube. And I'm like, well, that'd be hella boring. And then and it was last year, it came to me, a podcast, and it was at the end of last year. I'm going to do a podcast. So I thought about it. I didn't tell a single solitary soul. What would it look like? I started planning it. I started putting it together. I think you were the first person I told. And then I wasn't even thinking about having a co-host. And you and I started talking, and I'm like, can you be my co-host?
Yeah.
It just came to me in that moment.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is just because of, you know, I mean, the way we talk, I mean, it's so very candid. I mean, it always comes so naturally. So when you came with the idea, I was just like, holy shit. Like, this is something that people really need. I mean, you made a very good point that, I mean, we're not given manuals for how to raise our children, and each of our children are very, very different. I mean, you have one and I have 5. So, I mean, this is just like, how can we help our kids? Because I know I struggled, right? A lot, you know, and then to be in a household where there were 2 parents, but still feeling like a single parent, that's really difficult as well, you know? So, man, oh man.
Yeah. And I think between the struggles that we've had, like some of the issues that you have with your kids are so different from the issues that we have with Nicole. And I think that's why when we had our first brainstorming session on figuring out topics, it was like sparks were flying.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because we're coming from the same place, but different places.
Yes, but then at the same time, there was a relatability to it, because it's like, I know people that would want to know how they would have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like that they weren't alone in the struggle, because I think that even though we know so many parents like us, we feel so very alone. Yeah.
Alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is like a huge like epiphany.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. That's I had to put my finger on it. But that's exactly what it is. It's an aha moment for sure that we can, and the more people I've told about this, and I've still kept it to just a few people, like not everybody. Like I haven't even told my mother what I'm doing.
We don't tell our mothers.
Yeah.
We love
our kids are not the only ones.
Yeah.
So, but as I tell more people, and in putting this together and getting our guest list together and getting our advisory board with our experts together. Everybody thinks that this is something that's so needed. That's so. Last night we took Nicole to, I think it was last night. I don't know. I lose track of time. We took Nicole to a specialist who's a client of mine, and she's has this brain system. We're going to have her on. I don't want to.
We don't want to
talk too much about it. I want her to come on because when she talks about it, it's like you're completely enthralled in what she's saying. But we took, and I had told her about it. She came in to see about her insurance, and she was just like, you have to follow through on this. You absolutely have to follow through on this. And I'm like, yeah, well, I've spent all the money, so we're following through.
We've spent the money.
We spend the money. This is happening,
we have
sister.
No choice. Yes. I mean, if people could only see the other half of this studio.
Maybe one day we'll be brave enough to show.
One day.
Yeah, maybe when we're leaving it and we're getting like a real professional studio.
Right. I why do you think that mainstream social media has a tendency to make like parenting is just like the easiest thing, you know, like, oh, well, that's easy. Like, this is what you should do and blah, blah, blah. Like, why do you think that is?
I think social media is there. This is going to be, we're going to have topics on social media, different aspects of it. I think the thing with social media is everybody wants to look great on social media.
Right.
And I actually think that this goes back to, I have a background in modeling. So I think this started with print ads and how the airbrushing and the models have to be perfect. Models can't, you can't have a blemish on your face. All that we grew up with has bled over into the social media world. And, but now social media is not print, it's live.
Right.
And it's in the now. It's not, I took a picture 5 months ago and now it's on the cover 5 months later. And I think it's, the problem with social media is the same problem we had years ago with print ads. It's not real. It's not, everybody wants to look perfect. Everybody wants to look happy. Everybody wants to give this persona.
Right. Would you say that there's a level of expectation to look a certain way, right?
Absolutely. And when you're having drama at home, like some of the drama that you've experienced with your kids and the drama we've experienced, you're going to tell maybe your closest friends, but when you get on social media, it's like, oh, like I've known people that are going through hell and they get on social media and they're posting funny posts and stuff like that.
Right.
And I know they're not feeling funny.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to an old childhood friend of mine, and I had asked him, I said, had you ever thought about reaching out to me, years ago? And he said, well, yeah, but when I was looking at your social media, everything looked perfect, like, and I didn't want to intrude. And I said, oh my God, like, you have no idea. But like, I mean, obviously knowing what we know now, obviously social media is just, like you said, we're gonna present our best side. Why would anybody want to show their vulnerable side, because then that means that you're not perfect.
Exactly.
And that,
and that's the vulnerable side is what can help other people if you show that vulnerable side. That's one thing that I've learned from social media. So Nicole's YouTube channel, some of the videos that she's put on there and stuff, they're so raw. Her college dropout one is just, they're so raw and they're so real. Those are the ones where she really helped people.
Yes,
not
absolutely.
the ones where they're on there snapping each other with mouse traps and stuff.
Although that was funny as shit.
Oh yeah. That was some funny. Yeah. But the ones where she's really helped people are the ones that are the raw ones, the real ones. And so that's why we set the rules on this. When we talk to our guests and we ask them to come on, they have to tell the truth.
Right.
We will stop filming and we'll end that podcast if we feel like they're holding back.
Right.
Because if you want to see a facade, go on Instagram and follow that person on Instagram. But if you want some help, and we're not experts.
No, by any means.
And that's why we're having experts come in, because we're not experts.
Right.
All we can do is speak from our experience and our guests speak from their experience. But it's only going to work if people tell the truth.
Right.
So,
and I think the thing that I loved about what you just said was that, what Nicole was doing when she was doing a lot of her stuff was presenting something that could help someone. Like, and that's what really touched me when we were talking about it. It's like, how can we help someone with these videos, with these podcasts, because more often than not, when people do things, it's always with, something else in mind. Like, what can I get out of it, right? So I really love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and it's I think it's really I believe in social media. I believe in the technology of today. I don't believe in not giving your kid a phone because you don't want them to get on social media. When Nicole was a baby, everybody's like, are you going to baby-proof your home? I'm like, no, I'm going to tell her no.
Yeah.
If she goes to stick her finger in a light socket, I'm going to tell her, don't do that because you'll get hurt.
Right.
And if she doesn't understand that, only thing she needs to understand is I'm saying no, or her
Right.
dad saying no, and don't do that because I said so. And I think if we teach our kids, give your kid a phone, but teach them how to use the social media in a way that's not going to be, they're not going to turn into a bully, or they're gonna use it responsibly. Because if you don't, when they do go to school and you done paid all that money to send them to school and they're not technologically savvy, they ain't getting that job.
Oh, that's going to be so painful for them.
Oh,
because,
my God.
I mean, that is basically the direction of our future, is all of this, technology. But again, to handle it responsibly, I think is what you're trying to say, right? We don't want our kids just to go all crazy and just do whatever the hell they want, you know?
They got to learn boundaries. They got to learn boundaries. They got to learn boundaries for themselves, and they have to learn how to set boundaries with other people.
Right.
So other people don't encroach. That's one of the main, we made big mistakes with Nicole in raising her. And one of the big mistakes we made was setting a boundary with a family member, and setting that boundary. Boundaries are so important, and it falls, to me, in my opinion, in every part of your life, your work life, your life with your friends, your life, and that's a taught behavior.
Right. And I mean, and I can totally relate. And I think that that's something that everybody struggles with, right? Learning how to create boundaries. Some people learn probably a little bit quicker than others, but for the vast majority, we try to figure out what our boundaries are, you know? And I know that I also struggle with that in my own family, because I think on some level there's this very, I don't know, maybe this is not the word I want to use, but like a very cinematized version of what a family is supposed to look like, right? Everybody wants, the family gatherings, everybody there during Christmas, having Thanksgiving dinners, everybody laughing, playing games. But when the reality is that's not everybody's family.
And what do you do?
What do you do?
That's the part that's missing.
Right.
I think in mainstream media and social media, what do you do if your Christmas doesn't look like the Christmas that on the movie that you're watching on TV? We just had a Christmas like that here in this house. Right. So what do you do? Like, I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone because everybody's with their extended family and all that, and we didn't have that here. And it was one of the first ones where we didn't have that. And so what do you do? And it's the same thing with when your child is cutting, or when your child is having suicidal thoughts. What do you do? Who do you talk to? Who do you, I understand not wanting to go on social media and say, look, I'm going to be real here, and lay your heart out on the table. I get that. But you should have somebody that you can go talk to that maybe went through the same thing. It's up to you whether you listen to that person or not. But there should be somewhere where you can go to get the truth.
Right.
The freaking truth.
And I think there again has to be this level of vulnerability to be able to trust people with, information like that. Because let's face it, like, our families are very much the epicenter of our lives, right? And then if we open these doors to allow people into it, there's a potential for people to get hurt, right? Which can be very scary. So, how do we balance that, right? How do we reach out and find the help, and know that these people aren't going to create something else that we didn't even expect,
right? I think, and I always say this, when it took me a while to realize this, but when you have a kid, the moment that kid comes out, it ceases to be about you, and it's about that kid. It's no longer. So you better be ready let it not be about you anymore. Dan sent
the
me
glasses are
this.
coming on, huh?
The glasses are coming on. He said that his dad says, and I love this. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I just lost it. I got it back. He said, my dad used to say that parenting is the one thing you can do with the highest stakes, and yet there is no training. People just make it up as they go along based on your own upbringing, gut instinct, and advice from others who also were not trained. And I was like, wow, that's so true.
That's absolutely true.
That's so true.
And then, for you, like we have, I would say, similar values, but we parented different to a certain degree. I had many children before the age of 23. Five children by the age of 23, which is extremely different from your experience. I'm dealing with a level of immaturity, lack of experience, but then at the same time having all of this experience all at once, and not knowing what to do, and then having to deal with the cultural backlash of having children at such a young age, or social backlash, right? And I always wondered how it would have been had I waited, when I was older, when I was emotionally and mentally ready to have my kids, how my children would have been better off. But thankfully, and I tell my kids all the time, I'm really sorry, you guys. I really had to grow up with you guys. There were things that I did not get a chance to experience when I was younger that I almost, I was trying to make up for as I was raising them. So looking back on it, I mean, it could be something that was a little bit of a setback, but then at the same time, I look at my kids now, and they're really well-adjusted, good people, and I feel really fortunate for that, and we have a very open dialogue, and that's what I love about, like, how you're with Nicole, very open dialogue. They can talk to me about anything. I mean, they still kind of feel uncomfortable about certain things, but it's, I feel,
But it's crazy because I remember when I first met you, and I was like, somebody said, yeah, that's Vanessa. She has 5 kids. I was like, what the? Really? She's got 5 kids? Right. What are their ages? And they were like, well, the one with her is the youngest. Right. So, she's the baby of the family. I'm like, dang, how old was she when she started having kids? And, but I was like, and then we met officially, right. And we started talking and became friends and started hanging out. And the Vanessa then and the Vanessa now, like, you're still the same person, but you are so not the same person.
Isn't that funny?
It's crazy, like, how much you've grown and matured. And the main thing that I noticed the biggest change in you, your confidence level.
Thank you.
I remember back then you were just little Vanessa and little Abby and really funny and outgoing and stuff. But now you walk with it on a totally different level. And it's amazing to see the change in you. I'm so proud of you.
I like my 40s, I have to say, I really do like my 40s.
You're doing great in your 40s.
Yes, girl, yes. Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I think feeling comfortable in my skin took such a long time. It was really such a journey for me. Growing up, I grew up in California, and I went to a private Catholic school just like you did. So that's where the commonality is there. for 8 years, and majority of my classmates were primarily Caucasian, with a sprinkle of color here and there. My family, there were 4 of us that actually went to the same school, and when you're raised in an environment like that, with very wealthy people that, or at least what I perceive to be wealthy anyway, they were raised differently, and I would imagine that my parents probably struggled to a certain length, having to kind of keep up with what they were doing on some level, but still maintaining our culture, which is a topic we're going to talk about in, some a subsequent podcast, which I'm really excited about. And well, what about you? Can you tell people a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit, and I went to Catholic schools my whole life until I went to college. My high school, I went to Our Lady of Mercy High School. Shout out, Mercy.
Ow!
Once a Mercy girl, always a Mercy girl. I love my high school. My high school let me be me, which back then was rare, especially Catholic high schools, all girl. But they have the same traditions now that they did back then.
So cool.
I love following the schools, see what they're doing. They're innovators. When we talk about mental health, we'll talk about one of the programs that they're the first Catholic school in the United States to take part in.
Yeah.
For mental health.
I'm so excited about
so
that.
proud of them. So I had my upbringing. I was a ballet dancer. Started ballet when I was 7, and it was Russian technique. So our teacher was very, very strict. Went to Catholic schools, very, very strict. My mom was very, very strict. My dad wasn't. It was like the opposite of. And my mom would punish us, and then she'd be like out at school because she's, go to school. She was getting her master's, and he was home, and he'd be like, "Are you girls still on punishment?" We'd be like, "No," and he'd believe us. Poor guy. But I was raised in. I was a free spirit. I was gonna do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, which was against the grain. That was me. It wasn't always easy to be like that in that type of strict upbringing. My sister was the one that did everything that was expected of her, and I was like the opposite, and I wasn't gonna do. I just wasn't, no matter how miserable it made me, I just couldn't. I was incapable. I was only capable of doing what I did do. Right. And that's one of the reasons, like I said, that I love my high school is because they let me be me, and got me through high school. My dancing got me into college. The year before my senior year, I dropped out because I'm in college to dance, and I got a job dancing. So I'm like, why am I still in college?
Right.
It just didn't make any sense to me. So I left. And my parents had 25 heart attacks each. But I never stopped working.
Right.
It was rough that first winter because there's some jobs I thought I was going to get. I was working at Kings Island. And there were some jobs that I thought I was going to get that I didn't. But then after that, it was fine. I did my second summer there. And then after that, I went on ships and I never looked back. The woman that I worked for on ships, Jean Ann Ryan, I guess she saw something in me because she let me be dance captain and company manager and all of that. And that was just a precursor into what I do now, that management of other people into what I do now, the business I run now.
Well, I mean, I can kind of relate to that on some level, like almost like having artistic license to what the actual structure was, right? Like, oh, they said walk in a straight line, but did they say I could bounce? They didn't say that.
That's so you.
Yeah, it is so me. No, I totally get that. Can you tell us about the structure of your family life, like the people in it?
Oh yeah, I have one sister. She's passed. and she's older than me, 15 months apart. We tried to kill each other on numerous occasions growing up.
Natural.
A
Common.
lot of sibling rivalry, very close in age. We didn't become friends until we were adults. My mom and my dad's passed. I was extremely close to my father, and he wasn't a saint, but he was close, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was hysterical.
Yeah,
I really
he's
do
a
miss
funny
him.
guy.
Mhm.
I miss him. I miss everything about my dad. The other day I was thinking, oh my God, Daddy used to annoy me when he used to do whatever it was. I was thinking, and I thought, I wish he was here still doing it and annoying me, because my dad loved annoying me. It was one of his favorite things to do. And so here I have a family member here, my cousin Allison. She's an artist. And I have another cousin, and her dad just passed, and her mom passed years ago in 2004. And she has a brother, Paul, who lives in Seattle, who kept an eye on Nicole when Nicole was in Seattle. And my mom has a brother. And the older you get, they dwindle, they go away, and so that's just obviously part of life. And but yeah, that's my sister and I always did everything together.
Right.
She took ballet, I took ballet. She was a Girl Scout, I was a Girl Scout, and I was always second.
Right.
So there's some dynamic there.
Right.
All my sister ever wanted to be was a big sister, so it wasn't fair to her either.
Yeah.
That she was put in that position.
Yeah, and that's rough. Speaking from myself, I was the oldest of 5 in our family also, so I totally get that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I keep forgetting you were the oldest.
Yeah, I know, but I'm the shortest,
Oh
so
my
it
God.
doesn't, so people look and they're like, you can't be the oldest. It's not physically possible
Yeah.
that you could have been the oldest. No, yeah, absolutely.
I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so there are 2 girls, 3 boys. Again, I'm the oldest. Our youngest brother is autistic. I had both my parents around. We're Filipino, so we speak with a very thick accent that I love to use on occasion because
Yes, she does.
it kind of catches people off guard.
You do it so well.
I do. I do.
You're really good at it.
Our family, for the most part, is pretty close. I mean, my immediate family, my siblings, my parents, they're all here. As I mentioned before, that I have 5 children. You've seen them grow up too. And I'm divorced. I mean, you're married to Tinos, and you have Nicole.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah. I mean, it happens on occasion.
Sorry, honey. Yes, forgot about you.
We'll just fast forward. We'll take
Yeah.
out the forgot part,
But yeah, you have 5 kids. Good people.
Yeah, they're really good kids.
Just really, really, really good people.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what journey they're going to be on. I mean, majority of them have either entered adulthood or have been in adulthood for just a little bit, and so they have their own struggles. And I'm a very hands-off kind of mom, because I had to really learn things by myself. We're my siblings and I are first generation American, so culturally, there was so much of me and my parents butting heads because I didn't understand where the heck they were coming from. Oh, Vanessa, you don't even understand. You're right, I don't understand. I really don't. And I mean, thankfully I can understand their accent, but I kid. I love my parents, but that created a huge divide.
Culturally, it was a friction.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
a huge divide, because God, I want to think of a for instance type of a story, but well, I guess as most people know, as an Asian, you're supposed to really have these stellar academic, grades. And I always worked so hard to get good grades, right? And again, typical story. I came in with like an A minus, and I was ridiculed like immensely for not having the great
Oh
grades.
my
So,
God.
to have that level of, expectation from my family was a very difficult thing, especially since I really worked hard. It wasn't like I wasn't working hard, and then to feel like, oh, I didn't make the grade, like literally, was really hard. And I was in a lot of need, for attention when I was a kid. But yeah, but
Wow, that's really that's really important. We shouldn't glaze over that because that's what a lot of kids feel in high school. And when you put on top of that the social media and the peer pressure and everything else, and that's why so many of our kids today are suffering, like literally suffering because they feel less than. And perception is reality.
Absolutely.
And your perception was reality and made you who you are.
Right.
It was so real to you. And damn, what I would have done to get an A minus, so that minus
yeah, I know.
for you
Yeah.
is what how you felt about yourself, and what do you do as a parent, because that doesn't matter how many times you tell your kid, no, you're fantastic, you're great, and your kid thinks, oh, you're just saying that because you're my mom. But what if mom is saying, why didn't you get an A?
Right. Well, and the really funny thing about that is when I told myself when I would have kids, I would not do what my parents did to me. Well, wouldn't you know, I still did. I still did. And it's interesting to see how your upbringing really plays such a is such a huge foundation of how we end up, treating people, raising our children. The way we look at ourselves even in the mirror, you know what I mean, is really it really comes from those very formidable years, so which is again a huge thing. But yeah, my God, I'm really excited about getting this podcast going.
We're gonna interview our first guest tonight.
Yeah.
And really excited.
Yeah.
And might as well end this and start that.
Thank you so much, guys. Looking forward to seeing you in the future. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Did we fuck up something? I'm sure we did.
Well, no. I'm just gonna say you guys gotta do this
Again.
Like and subscribe. Leave a
Oh,
comment
yeah.
down below of what new stuff they should do, what topics, what you want to hear from them. Okay? Do that, all right?
Okay.
All
Like
right.
and subscribe.
That's
Like and
Nicole.
subscribe.
That's Nicole. We don't know these things. We've seen them, but we
Yeah.
don't know these
Producer.
things.
Also subscribe to my channels. Link down
yes.
below. All right,
Link
bye.
below. Bye.